Tryna say I'm on the enemy. Got a cold with my dogs, can't get in between. I can give them life, no more energy. Amen. Amen.
What is up, everybody? You guys see that green slip on the screen? The last video we were here for was Monday Night Football. We cashed out again. We've cashed some Sunday Night Football slips. We've cashed some Monday Night Football slips. We got to hit a Thursday Night Football slip now, JJ. We got Steelers and Bengals. How are we feeling?
It's gonna be an ugly game, but I think we can still find some edge here.
Everybody here knows we hate these divisional primetime games. It makes it that much worse, Steelers and Bengals. Like, nobody wants this. Not a single. There's not going to be good offense. The defense isn't going to be like the enjoyable good defense. It's just going to be an ugly game. Unfortunately, it's an ugly game that I will be going to. It is in Cincinnati, so I'm going there with my buddy who's a Steelers fan. I will have my boots on the ground. But there's a lot of football to talk about. As ugly as it is to bet on, there's a lot to talk about. So let's get into it, shall we? You want to start off with the Steelers or the Bengals side?
Start off with the Steelers.
Let's start off with the Steelers. And one topic that I didn't think was going to become as popular as it is, but somehow it is Darnell Washington, because his route share and his snap share is going up, and it makes sense. Mike Tomlin came out and said, whenever we play teams that play a lot of 4-3 base defense, you're going to be seeing a lot of Darnell Washington, because big boys need to have other big boys against them. Darnell Washington is one of those guys. And while that is still the case, the Bengals also play a lighter box than average in the NFL. So I think it kind of can go both ways with him. I think people see that quote by Tomlin when he said, oh, we're facing another 4-3 defense in Cincinnati. You're probably going to see him again. And I think they just take it and run, because he had 15 routes 2 weeks ago, 20 routes run last week. I think that's still on the higher end of what we're going to see with him. I think that's something you disagree with me on, so I'll let you take the floor from here.
I think just because the size alone, even outside of just the base defense, I think he has looked decent out there. And I don't know, it's like 80% plus snap share the last 2 games, even though they have played higher base personnel defenses. It's not that far off from Cleveland. I think maybe like 8-10%, which could look significant, but I mean, still a fifth to a quarter of the reps. He looks better than a lot of other tight ends out there right now.
Can I say this feels like the most flying under the radar Jonnu Smith game I've ever seen? Everybody always wants to write off Jonnu Smith. Jonnu Smith is like Arthur Smith's perfect tight end. Nobody's really giving him any attention, and I part of me feels like Mike Tomlin is gassing up Darnell Washington as publicly as possible, just so everybody forgets about Jonnu Smith. Because Jonnu Smith is their yak monster, which we'll get into with this matchup, because as far as yards after the catch, that's exactly what you're looking for against the Cincinnati team. And I was looking deeper into where these yards after the catch come against the Bengals in terms of compared to league average. It's the running backs by a long shot. I think it's like 60% more yards after catch per reception to running backs than league average. Tight ends by a long shot, I think it's like 30 or 40%. And then wide receivers were around like 10% higher. So in terms of being a bad yak defense, it's primarily running backs and tight ends. And when I think of a yak tight end, not even just the Steelers, just in the scope of the NFL, I think of Jonnu Smith. So I think this is a great Jonnu Smith game personally. I think in all the Darnell Washington hype, Jonnu Smith is going to be the one that everybody forgets about.
Yeah, I would say target Jonnu for yards, Darnell with receptions.
I'll live with that. I'll let you guys have the reception. But let's get into the rest of the receivers on the Steelers, because there's not many. There's just DK Metcalf. And his role is, I don't know if it's definitive enough to say that his role has changed, but last week he had significantly more down the field's targets than he's seen. He's also fallen in that Jonnu Smith bucket so far this season, aside from last game, where his work has primarily been yards after the catch, which I think we're at a point where we can say we're just the Steelers offense as a whole.
Yeah, this offense, his role is changing just for the simple fact that Calvin Austin is out. You know, he just got rolled out, I think, yesterday. But it's like Calvin Austin is like pretty underrated for that offense. And
I love
somebody
Calvin.
has to fill that role, but I mean, Romo Wilson, I don't think that's going to be enough. So we're going to be seeing a lot more 12, 13 personnel out there probably.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And I mean, we're talking about Arthur Smith as the offensive coordinator. If anybody wants to run those tight end heavy sets, it's Arthur Smith. So,
Yeah.
Johnny Smith, Darnell Washington, DK Metcalf, those are really the only pass catchers to concern yourself with the Steelers offense. I wouldn't look into Freiermuth's snap rate, and just target rate is not good. You don't want any part of it right now. And then like Roman Wilson, like Jay just said, doesn't really seem to be a factor. Scotty Miller, Matt Harmon, I was listening to him earlier today, mentioned that he has 32 routes and 0 targets. Fucking insane. So then we just fall into the running backs, which has turned from, wow, Jalen Warren, he's actually getting a lot of usage, to three-headed committee. What's your take on there? Because we got Jalen Warren, Kenneth Gainwell, and Caleb Johnson.
Yeah, I think just looking at week 6, like, oh, Caleb Johnson had, what was it, 5 or 6 carries?
Might even less than that. 1 carry. Are you
Yeah,
talking
1
last
carry.
week or week 1?
No, last week.
Oh,
Week
last week.
6.
Yeah, the last 2 games he had 6 carries. But the game before the bye without Jalen Warren, and then 6 carries again last week.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, it looked like most of his snaps came in the fourth quarter. So, I'm not too concerned about Caleb. Let me see. Yeah, so he had 11 snaps, 6 carries overall. But if you just look at the first, second, and third quarter only, just 4 snaps in those first 3 quarters. So, yeah, that's just all garbage time for him, trying to get him going. They just want to see what he can do out there. So I'm not too worried about him. I think all the focus should be on Kenneth Gainwell and Jalen Warren here, in my opinion.
I'm kind of leaning like that was Jalen Warren's first game back from an injury, and even though they had the bye week, it was still kind of like the practices leading up to the game. I don't think he was full health until a couple of days before. I think we're at the point of Kenneth Gainwell's career where we know he's a good backup, but he is a backup. He had a great game before the bye, and then was used a little bit, kind of in that same kind of rush attempt share once Jalen Warren got back. I think Jalen Warren is just going to absorb a little bit more of what Caleb Johnson's snaps later in the game were. I think Jalen Warren takes back that higher usage share he had before the injury. I'm not hyping up Kenneth Gainwell's big game overseas against the Vikings defense personally. So
yeah. And the other thing is, I mean, Warren on the ground hasn't popped off either. He hasn't really popped off like that since 2023 with those super efficient games. So, I mean, Caleb, not a factor like I keep saying. But then Gainwell, his usage hasn't really changed at all. So his usage can only go up. So I don't see that dropping off. So it really just comes down to what Jalen Warren's role is really going to be going into the second game back from injury.
which in this matchup is probably the most get right matchup you can ask for as a running back.
I think both of them are just going to eat here.
I think what's weird about this Bengals rushing defense is overall they're not good. Like yards per carry, yards per game, bad. But yards after contact, I think they're allowing the 7th lowest in the NFL. So I guess you just need the Steelers offensive line to do their job.
But when you got 12 and 13 personnel running out there, they'll have those extra blockers.
Exactly. But we can get into a little bit more of the Bengals side now, because I think Jake Browning's out. Joe Burrow's still hurt. They brought in Joe Flacco. And some people, because Jake Browning performed as poorly as he did in those few games, some people saw it as like, oh, he's here to save us until Joe Burrow gets back. He had 2 days to prep before that last game, and then now gets a short week where they're not going to have a real practice as well. This is probably the worst scenario to get put into, being traded as a quarterback, because not only is it just 0 prep, but now you're also getting a Steelers secondary who I think has been is now at full health for the first time this season with all of Joey Porter, Darius Slay, and Jalen Ramsey all healthy. I am very high on Joey Porter as a defender. Unfortunately, he is going against Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, who are very good in their own right. So it's kind of mano a mano there. I don't really give a huge edge to either side, even though we all know how good Jamar Chase is. But if you're looking at it from the quarterback perspective, I don't love Joe Flacco just dealing them down the field consistently in this one.
Yeah, I don't really see them pushing the ball downfield unless they really get it out quick, because this Pittsburgh defense, they're getting pressure, top 5 pressure rate, and I think the second highest blitz rate according to next gen stats. So it's going to be tough.
Oh yeah,
I think he's going to get a lot of quick hitters in this game, and that's where Jamar Chase can feast, especially because, I mean, the Steelers, they play off the ball so much in their coverage. As far as the corners, they give a lot of cushion. And it makes sense. They're playing a lot of single high. They're the cover 3, you want to get back a little bit more. But the other thing I did notice, Joey Porter, last game, he only stayed on one side of the field the entire time, pretty much. And you got Slay on the other side, and then you got Jalen Ramsey just being the nickel. So, I mean, I'm not too concerned about Joey Porter. It's just a matter you can really keep your receiver on one side of the field, and knowing these guys, they're going to be moving their receivers around. So I'm not too worried about it, but I think a lot of underneath stuff should be able to take advantage of.
Yep, I think it's going to be, they're going to try and get the ball in Jamar Chase's hands as much as possible. We know the run game is not good. It's not only is it not a good matchup, even in the best matchups, the run game has not been good for the Bengals. So if that's the case, and you have DBs that are solid, and also they haven't really allowed down the field explosive plays because they're playing, I think JG mentioned they're playing pretty far off of the receivers.
Yeah.
So that limits a lot of the over-the-top stuff. So no run game, no over-the-top. Jamar Chase get the ball in his hands and let him basically play as an extended running back. I think that's what they try and do here. I'm not firm on how effective I think it's going to be from a yardage and continuing drive standpoint, but I do expect the usage to be there, kind of like you said. And one thing that I do think is worth mentioning, and I'll get on the screen here, if you look at his game log this year so far for 6.5 receptions, you see 2 green bars of 10 and 14 receptions, 3 red bars. There is direct correlation on which games Jake Browning was the quarterback in. It was the 3 red games. So if you want to go look at his targets as well, in the 2 games without Jake Browning, he had 12 targets last game against the Packers, 16 against the Jaguars, and then 10, 8, and 6 in the 3 games with Jake Browning. As far as down the field targets, he had 3 last game. So there is chances for volume, but as you can see, it's just, if you're anybody but Jake Browning, you seem to know to pass the ball to Jamar Chase. And at the 6.5 line, it's probably a good idea for him to do that in this game as well. Speaking of the run game, Chase Brown, he's getting a lot of flack right now. People are saying he's just not good. I never thought he was Derrick Henry or Saquon. And I was one of the people kind of telling everybody just calm down a little bit with their hype for Chase Brown last year. However, we've overcorrected because he could not have asked for worse offensive line play to open up the run game for him. And people just seem to think that he's bad now. Still the same running back. But when your offensive line is giving you negative yards before contact, I think in every game, or up until last week or 2 weeks ago, you don't really have the opportunity to do too much. And the issue with that is not, it's going to regress at some point, he'll get his chances. But now it's Samaje Perine is taking a lot of his work. If we look at his rush share, I can get that on the screen as well. His rush attempts, you see, start the season, 21 attempts, bad efficiency. 16 attempts, bad efficiency. And now you see 10 or less in his 4 most recent games, and 8 and 9 in his 2 most recent games, with his routes not looking great as well. Although it says 21 and 20 here, when you go look at these games and how many passes pass attempts were made, realize that this percentage is not as high as it normally is. So if this game is as slow as I expect it to be with both the Steelers and the Bengals, but both being teams that don't leave a lot of time on the play clock on every play, I expect the pass attempts to come down. So what's your take on the P. Ryan and Brown situation? Because I know we've talked about that a little bit.
Yeah, I noticed P. Ryan is starting to eat a little bit more into the early down work, but like the late down work, like none of that's really changed. It's just he's getting a little bit more early work here the last 2 games here and there.
Yeah, I mean, for anybody who's followed the NFL for the last 5-ish years, that's who P. Ryan's been. He's been the receiving back, the third down back. He's great and he's good at block, like pass protection, I should say, and being a great check down option. So that role we expected, but cutting into those early down attempts, that's where it gets a little bit concerning for Brown. And before we get into the last thing that I kind of want to mention in terms of this Bengals offense, I do want to remind everybody this website that I keep sharing on the screen, used for research. Think of some websites like Props.cash and Outlier. We've basically taken that model and improved on it, offered a lot more advanced statistics, coverage data, defensive data that don't exist anywhere else. So if you guys do want to try that out, it is new. Just scan that QR code in the bottom right corner of the screen or DM me or JJ or the MCA account on Twitter, and we'll make sure to hook you guys up with that. You do get a free week. Sounds pretty nice to me. Who doesn't like free stuff? So just let us know, and we'll get you guys hooked up. But the last player I wanted to talk about on the Bengals side is Noah Fant. I don't remember which week this was displayed on the screen, but it was Puka Nacua was having a crazy game, as he always does. And they put on the screen highest targets per route run leaders. Puka Nacua, 39%. Noah Fant, 38%. Everybody was confused as hell because nobody was expecting that name to show up. And when you look at it, it checks out because he's had 4 or more targets in every game this season. And up until last game, he didn't run more than 13 routes in a game. When he's on the field, he's being used. And when you turn on the film, it kind of makes sense because they use him to chip a blocker, as a lot of teams do with their tight ends. But then teams don't really care about Noah Fant catching the ball. So after he chips the blockers, he just kind of goes down and check down territory. And if Jamar Chase and T. Higgins aren't open 20 yards down the field, they just give it to Noah Fant. And because of that, he's had 3 receptions in every game, 4 receptions in 3 out of 4 games. And now, because Mike Gesicki got hurt, I think it was a torn pec, some sort of pec injury, he ran 21 routes last game. So if you're giving me somebody with at least 30% targets per run, and they're giving me 21 routes, JJ, I'm expecting some receptions.
Yeah.
So do what you will with that information. Tanner Hudson is another tight end who's been taking some work as well, but we do, I think it's safe to say, we expect Noah Fant to be taking the bulk of the tight end work.
Yeah, it should be similar to last week because Mike Gesicki got hurt pretty early in that game.
Yep. And if you want to look at other tight ends against the same team, we targeted Njoku in this matchup last week, both me and you, JJ. He only had 3 receptions, but he had 6 targets. 2 of them were dropped, and he got injured 3 times in the same game. His running mate, also on the same team, Harold Fannin Jr., 7 receptions. TJ Hawkinson, very poor season. He had 4 receptions in this game. Hunter Henry got us 8 receptions from Hunter Henry. So tight ends it's been food against this team. So we expect more of the same. Noah Fant should do well. So should we get into the parlay? We have 2 of them for everybody.
We do.
So which one do you want to give out first? The normal one or the fun one?
We gotta save the fun one for last.
All right, we'll do the normal one first. Let me get that on the screen for everybody, and we'll break it down a little bit. So like I said, I'll be at the game, and the person that I'm going to be with is a Steelers fan. Actually, I mean, honestly, there is no bias, so I would probably be picking the Steelers anyways, but it'll make it more fun for me. But I don't see much success coming for the Bengals this one on either side of the ball. Because like I said, there's not much time for Joe Flacco coming into prep against a defense that's not favorable for him. So when you have that against a team that's already really good at defending in the red zone, I don't expect a lot of scoring efficiency here from Cincinnati. And the Steelers are a team that relies on yards after the catch in the pass game. And like we said, the Bengals are one of the worst yards after the catch teams in the NFL. So Pittsburgh Steelers on the money line. No matter how ugly it's going to be, Mike Tomlin's going to get it done. But on top of that, we're taking Jaylen Warren to get a touchdown because the Bengals defense is not good. When they allow touchdowns, usually it's rushing touchdowns. And Jaylen Warren is still the RB1 of this offense. We don't expect Caleb Johnson to be much of a factor. And if you're asking me to pick between Jaylen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell, I'm picking Jaylen Warren every single time. And lastly, Noah Fant, 3+ receptions. Like we said, when he's on the field, he's getting targeted at a ridiculous rate. And with Mike Gesicki out, he's going to be on the field more and more. His regular line's 3.5. We do think he hits that as well. However, we watered it down a little bit because if he gets 15 routes, if this game ends up being a little slower, he should still for sure be in line for 3 receptions. We don't have to sweat it. All that together with a 30% boost is plus 262 on FanDuel. Again, we are trying to go back-to-back. We have for plus 472 just on Monday night. We're trying to go for plus 262 today. And for the fun one, JJ, something we don't normally do, but we're going to start to integrate a little bit more. We're going to get a little bit of lotto action going in because we know you guys love your lottos and we love to have a little bit of extra fun. So we're targeting early portions of the game. Noah Fant, 10+ receiving yards in the first quarter. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they don't want to give up big plays early. They're going to sit deep. They're going to let the Noah Fant get 2 receptions in the first drive. Let him eat a little bit. 10 yards is nothing. Then on the other side, Jaylen Warren. I know you loved Jaylen Warren in the first quarter. We're taking him for 20+ rush yards. No matter how much work Kenneth Gainwell gets, Jaylen Warren will still be the starting running back, which means first drive is for Jaylen Warren. Most likely gets a decent chunk of the second drive as well. And if we get both those drives in the first quarter, we know this Bengals defense is not good at defending the run. 20+ rush yards, 4 attempts. That's really all we need here. And on top of that, Jaylen Warren, first touchdown score. I'm really not confident in it. I wouldn't be surprised if we only get 1 touchdown in this game, and it's Jaylen Warren. That's how great I feel about that one. But all that together is plus 4,800 on DK. There is a no sweat token to use that on. So make sure you lock those in. Make sure you like, subscribe if you haven't already. If you want access to that website, again, scan that QR code at the bottom or DM us. But otherwise, good luck today. Let's make some money. If you guys see me on TV, make sure to let me know. Otherwise, take care. JJ, it's good to see you. And let's keep making money.